With that, the trio boarded their bus about 3.5 hours ago for the ride to launch site 31, a trip that took almost 1 hour to complete. And here you see the bus with the crew arriving at the pad. The crew climbing a few stairs that you'll see in a moment, waving goodbye to well-wishers and entering the elevator for the ride to the top of the Soyuz rocket to board their spacecraft, which they've now been aboard for the past 2+ hours. Taken several hours ago as the three crew members arrived at launch site 31 at the launch pad, having an opportunity to say goodbye one final time to well-wishers at the pad, as well as managers from NASA and Roscosmos, before boarding the elevator at the pad for the ride up to the top of the Soyuz 2.1A booster to board their spacecraft, which they've now been aboard for a little over 2 hours. And we are now back live with a view of the Soyuz MS-22 rocket on the launch pad at Site 31 at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Launch is scheduled just 14.5 minutes from now at 8:54 and 49 seconds a.m. Central Time, 6:54 and 49 seconds p.m. in Baikonur, about 7 minutes after sunset. Atop the 2.1A booster, strapped into their seats in the descent module of the Soyuz, NASA's Frank Rubio, along with Sergei Prokopyev and Dmitry Petelin of Roscosmos. As mentioned earlier, Prokopyev, the Soyuz commander, is in the center seat of the descent module of the Soyuz MS-22, Petelin to his left and Rubio to his right. At the time of launch, the International Space Station will be flying over northwest Uzbekistan. The station and the Expedition 67 crew will pass directly over the Baikonur Cosmodrome 1 minute, 58 seconds after launch, and will leapfrog past the ascending Soyuz vehicle as it heads to orbit. 8 minutes and 45 seconds after launch, the third stage engine of the Soyuz booster will shut down, and the Soyuz will separate from its launch vehicle in a preliminary orbit, deploying its solar arrays and its navigational antennas. At that point, the three crew members will be trailing the space station by about 1,000 miles. The chase will begin, resulting in a docking to the Rassvet module of the International Space Station at 12:11 p.m. Central Time today. As you saw earlier, a NASA delegation is in Baikonur at this hour, preparing to watch the launch of the crew to the International Space Station. NASA's Deputy Associate Administrator Ken Bowersox, ISS Program Manager Joel Montalbano, Johnson Space Center Deputy Director Steve Kerner, Norm Knight, the Director of Flight Operations here at the Johnson Space Center, and NASA's Chief Astronaut Reid Wiseman, all in Baikonur to watch Frank Rubio begin his mission, and NASA Public Affairs Officer Dan Hewitt, who filed this report a short time ago.
Thanks, Rob, and greetings from Baikonur. As you said, a small group of medical and support personnel, along with some NASA leadership, are on hand here in Kazakhstan to support Frank's launch today. The delegation includes NASA's International Space Station Program Manager Joel Montalbano, and he sat on the State Commission on Tuesday to give formal approval to move forward with launch. Several of our key personnel, including our chief astronaut, Reid Wiseman, have been living in quarantine alongside Rubio just during all of his final preparations here, which have all continued along smoothly. It's been clear skies throughout the week's events and is shaping up to be picturesque with liftoff coming in the twilight hours here at the Cosmodrome. We're all gathered within sight of the launch pad and have some additional personnel staged with SAR forces to support any contingency situations. Now, Rubio's looking to join his 2017 astronaut class colleagues Jessica Watkins and Bob Hines on board the station, and he's had fellow classmate Laurel O'Hara here on hand as part of the backup crew in advance of her own launch next spring. So everything remains go here in Baikonur. Good luck to the crew of Soyuz MS-22, and I'll hand it back over to Rob in Mission Control Houston to continue with the countdown.
Thanks, Dan. Dan Hewitt, who's at the viewing site just a couple of miles away from the 2.1A booster that you see on the launch pad as the sun begins to set over the Baikonur Cosmodrome. Sunset actually about 3 minutes from now, with the launch taking place just over 10 minutes from now at 8:54 and 49 seconds a.m. Central Time, 6:54 and 49 seconds p.m. in Baikonur. All of the launch preparations have gone off without a hitch to this point. Everything is in readiness.
Altair, this is number 3, L-5, close visors. Three, this is Altai 1, visors are closed. Rescue aids are ready. Altair 16-3, second camera is on. We are watching the flight engineer 2. Copy.
We're approaching the T-minus 9-minute mark in the countdown. Preparations are continuing in good fashion at the Baikonur Cosmodrome. No issues reported. We're about 2 minutes away from the completion of pre-launch operations. At this point in the countdown, the Soyuz's first and second stage engines are ready for launch, telemetry having been received from the rocket, indicating that all primary and backup systems are set to support liftoff. Once again, at the time of launch, the International Space Station will be flying 259 miles over northern Uzbekistan, some 335 statute miles behind the Soyuz as it leaves the launch pad. A very narrow phase angle for launch for orbital insertion that will ensure the beginning of a 2-orbit, 3+ hour rendezvous to reach the International Space Station. And during the Soyuz climb to orbit, the ISS will leapfrog ahead of Soyuz, and Soyuz will then be catching up to the International Space Station through a series of pre-programmed rendezvous burns.
Altai 16-3, L-1, everything per the schedule. The vehicle is nominal. The launch will be broadcast. Altai 1, copy all. Everything is nominal on board. We are ready for launch.
Sergei Prokopiev, the Soyuz commander, reporting back to launch controllers in Baikonur that everything is in readiness aboard the Soyuz MS-22 spacecraft. You see the booster on the launch pad. Again, the two umbilical towers that are buttressed up against the Soyuz, the first will retract at about the T-minus 30 or 35 second mark. The second of those two umbilicals will retract at about the 12-second mark before launch, initiating the auto sequence start for engine ignition and ultimately for liftoff. Inside 6.5 minutes from launch, a launch key has been inserted in the launch bunker. This is a real key that transitions the launch sequence into automatic mode. And launch controllers down at Baikonur reporting that the range is clear, the Soyuz rocket ready to begin its journey.
Launch key inserted.
The three crew members strapped into their seats in the center section, the descent module, have closed their visors for launch. Sergei Prokopyev reporting that everything is in readiness on board the Soyuz, flanked to his right by NASA's Frank Rubio and to his left by Roscosmos cosmonaut Dmitry Petelin. 5.5 minutes until launch. Onboard systems will be switching to onboard control. The commander's cockpit displays now activated. Passing now the 5-minute mark into the countdown. Strip chart recorders in the Launch Control Center now activated. They will be recording telemetry from the launch vehicle during liftoff and its climb to orbit. The sun setting on the Central Asian desert, everything in readiness for launch at 8:54 and 49 seconds a.m. Central Time, 6:54 and 49 seconds p.m. Baikonur time. The Soyuz 2.1A booster fuel lines and other elements of the rocket engines now being purged with nitrogen to fireproof them, to remove vapors of fuel and oxidizer for the final minutes of the countdown. Moments from now, a key will be placed in the drainage position. The valves through which evaporated or gaseous oxygen escapes from the fuel tanks into the atmosphere are closed as the fuel begins to drain back into the tanks. At the same time, the valves providing liquid oxygen to replenish those tanks will be lost by the natural boil-off or evaporation. Coming up on the T-minus 3-minute mark in the count. The drainage has now been completed. T-minus 2 minutes 45 seconds until launch. The fuel and oxidizer tanks now being pressurized to optimize fuel flow to provide additional structural rigidity to the launch vehicle on the pad.
Booster propellant tank pressurization initiated.
Tank pressurization underway. Everything in good shape as we approach the T-minus 2-minute mark in the count.
The vehicle is nominal. Copy.
Passing through 2 minutes. Coming up on the termination of the ground propellant feed to the Soyuz booster. T-minus 1 minute 30 seconds until launch. The Soyuz about to go on internal power. This in-cabin view showing at the bottom of your screen Sergei Prokopiev, the Soyuz commander, and at the top of your screen Dmitry Petelin, Frank Rubio on the right of Prokopiev out of the field of view here. We are now 50 seconds from launch.
Vehicle switch to internal power, first umbilical tower separation.
First umbilical should be retracting, and there it goes. The second umbilical will retract at about the T-minus 15 second mark. The second umbilical has retracted. This will initiate the auto sequence start. T-minus 10 seconds and counting. We have engine start.
Second umbilical tower separation.
Turbo pumps coming up to flight speed.
Turbo pumps, flight speed,
and liftoff. A sunset start to the mission of Rubio, Prokopiev, and Petelin to the International Space Station.
10 seconds, flight is nominal.
Good first stage performance reported from the blockhouse at Baikonur, the Soyuz delivering 930,000 pounds of thrust from its 4 boosters and single engine.
L plus 20, L plus 20.
Arcing out to the northeast from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. 35 seconds into the flight. Everything looking good so far. Good roll, pitch, and yaw program. The vehicle reported structural stability is good.
Stable.
Approaching the 1 minute mark into the flight.
Crew is feeling well. Vehicle is nominal. Copy.
Velocity now about 1,100 miles per hour. Yaw, pitch, and roll program all reported to be nominal from the blockhouse at Baikonur.
Nominal. Vehicle is nominal. Crew is feeling well.
Prokopiev reporting the crew is feeling well. Coming up on the 1 minute 20 second mark into the flight. Now passing through the area of maximum dynamic pressure.
L plus 80 parameters are nominal.
One minute 35 seconds into the flight.
Pressure in KPO parameter is above nominal. Copy, KPO parameter of nominal. Correct? Affirmative. Set. Jettison confirmed.
And we've had first stage separation.
Nominal. Crew is feeling well. KPO pressure parameter is nominal. Copy. KPO is nominal. Please report pressure. 8358. 834.
2 minutes 35 seconds into the flight.
Second stage engine operating nominally.
The second stage engine is operating normally. Now a view from the upper stage of the Soyuz booster as it continues to climb uphill.
100.
Launch shroud now has been jettisoned.
Vehicle is nominal.
The Soyuz booster about 48 miles in altitude. Traveling about 5,200 miles an hour. Some 72 miles downrange.
L plus 190.
3 minutes 20 seconds into the flight.
Is nominal. C indication controlled descent available. Vehicle is nominal. Copy. Indication is on.
Well, good reports so far. The flight reported as nominal as we approach the 4 minute mark into the flight.
Pressure reached 105 1500 for a moment. Copy.
Second stage engine continues to burn as planned as we approach the 4-minute 15-second mark into the flight. About halfway through powered flight now.
Copy.
About 15 seconds away from second stage shutdown and the ignition of the third stage.
L plus 270, parameters are nominal. Second stage separation confirmed.
The Soyuz now climbing to orbit on the singular power of its third stage engine. 5 minutes, 12 seconds into the flight, about 3.5 minutes of powered flight remaining.
L plus 310, launch vehicle is stable. Vehicle is nominal, crew is feeling well.
Prokopiev reports that the crew is doing well. This third stage engine providing 67,000 pounds of thrust for the remaining 3 minutes of powered flight.
Нормально. 350.
We've now hit the 6-minute mark into the flight, everything going as planned. A true trajectory so far for the Soyuz booster. Now flying on the third stage propulsion of its singular engine. Good roll, pitch, and yaw reported. Good structural stability reported.
Секунд, двигатель 380 seconds. The engine of the third phase is working nominally.
–
400 seconds. The stabilization of the article is in place. It is stable. Altai.
Good structural stability of the Soyuz vehicle at the 7-minute mark into the flight, about 1 minute 45 seconds of powered flight remaining. Yaw, pitch, and roll all reported to be nominal. At the time of third stage shutdown and spacecraft separation, control of the Soyuz vehicle through docking will transition to the flight control team at the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow. 7 minutes, 30 seconds into the flight. Again, this view from a camera on the upper stage of the Soyuz booster, which should also provide us a view of